Good morning, my beloved friends. Today is Wednesday, December 17, 2025, and I welcome you to a fresh moment in time, a divine opportunity to start your day with prayer. Before the world speaks, before distractions pull at your mind, let us anchor our hearts in the presence of God. Today, I invite you to step into a place of authority, a place of peace, and a place of divine alignment. This is not just a prayer, this is a declaration, an intentional act to release heaven's power over your life, your family, and your destiny. So wherever you are, I want you to take a deep breath. Lift your hands in faith and prepare to speak life, to decree victory, and to align your spirit with God's perfect will. Beloved, today is your day to begin with prayer, to walk in purpose, and to see the supernatural unfold. Let us pray. When you wake up in the morning, before you even take a step into the activities of your day, before your mind begins to run with the pressures and demands of life, there is a moment of divine opportunity that is available to you, the opportunity to declare God's authority over your day. This is not just a casual thought or a fleeting expression of faith. This is a conscious, intentional act that sets the tone for every hour, every interaction, and every decision that you will face. The scriptures remind us that God's word is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword. And when you speak his word with authority, you are activating heaven itself to intervene in your circumstances. To declare God's authority over your day is to recognize that you are not walking through life by accident or by chance, but that your day is ordered, governed, and protected by the hand of the Almighty. When you make this declaration, you are stepping into your position as a child of God, acknowledging that your life is not subject to the whims of chance or the unpredictable shifts of the world, but that it is under the sovereign rule of the one who controls the heavens and the earth. You are proclaiming that no matter what challenges may arise, no matter what unexpected situations may confront you, there is a power greater than anything you can face that is at work in your life. There is a divine authority that surrounds you, protects you, and positions you for favor, provision, and breakthrough. This authority is not something you earn or achieve by your own effort. It is a gift from God, made available through your faith, your obedience, and your willingness to declare it boldly over your life. To declare God's authority is to speak with conviction over every area of your existence. It is to say with confidence that God's plan will prevail in your finances, in your relationships, in your health, in your work, and in every step you take. It is to recognize that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is at work in you, guiding your steps and empowering you to overcome obstacles that may seem insurmountable. When you declare his authority, you are not merely speaking words into the air. You are aligning yourself with a spiritual reality that transcends the natural realm. You are acknowledging that heaven has a strategy for your day, and you are choosing to partner with that strategy rather than relying on your own understanding or strength. Every day presents a battlefield, whether visible or invisible, and there are forces that seek to distract you, discourage you, and derail you from the path God has ordained for you. When you declare God's authority over your day, you are invoking a divine covering that shields you from these attacks. You are activating spiritual weapons that cannot be seen by the human eye, but are powerful enough to dismantle strongholds, silence fear, and remove obstacles before they manifest in the natural. This declaration is not passive, it is active. It is a verbal proclamation that sets into motion the fulfillment of God's purposes in your life. It is a reminder that you are not alone in your journey, that you have a divine partner whose authority surpasses every difficulty, and that no power of darkness can prevail against what God has established. Declaring God's authority also shifts your mindset. It changes the way you perceive challenges and uncertainties. When you affirm that God is in control, you are no longer bound by anxiety, worry, or doubt. You are free to approach your day with confidence, knowing that every circumstance is under the governance of a higher power. This is not wishful thinking or mere optimism. This is spiritual truth. You are aligning your thoughts, words, and actions with the reality of God's sovereignty. And in doing so, you position yourself to receive divine guidance, protection, and favor. Your declaration becomes a spiritual anchor that keeps you grounded even when the storms of life rage around you. To practice this declaration, begin by acknowledging God's presence as you rise from your bed. Speak his word over yourself and your environment. Say, today, the Lord is my guide. Today, the Lord is my protector. Today, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. These are not empty phrases. They are affirmations of authority that connect your faith to the promises of God. Declare his power over your mind so that fear and doubt are silent. Declare his favor over your relationships so that love, understanding, and harmony prevail. Declare his provision over your finances so that opportunities flow and needs are met. Declare his guidance over your decisions so that wisdom directs every choice you make. Each of these declarations is a conscious act of submitting your day to God's rule, recognizing that his authority is supreme and unchallengeable. When you consistently declare God's authority over your day, you cultivate a spiritual discipline that transforms your life. It is a habit that trains your spirit to rely on God's power rather than your own. It develops your faith, strengthens your resolve, and deepens your intimacy with the Creator. You begin to see patterns of blessing, protection, and divine alignment that confirm the truth of what you have declared. Doors open that no man can shut. Favor surrounds you in ways that defy explanation, and your steps are ordered in perfect timing with God's plan. It is also important to understand that declaring God's authority over your day is not limited to moments of calm or convenience. It is most powerful when you face trials, uncertainties, or opposition, when challenges arise, when others doubt, when circumstances appear overwhelming. Your declaration becomes a spiritual weapon that cuts through fear and doubt. You remind yourself and the spiritual realm that the day does not belong to the enemy, that the day is ordained by God, and that his purposes will prevail regardless of what unfolds. It is in these moments that the authority you declare carries the greatest impact, because it is rooted not in human strength, but in the immutable power of God. Finally, to declare God's authority is to embrace your identity as his child. It is to recognize that you have been entrusted with the power to partner with heaven, and that your words and faith have the capacity to shape your reality. It is a bold step into spiritual leadership over your own life, an acknowledgement that you are not a passive participant in the unfolding of your day, but an active co-laborer with God. Every declaration you make, every word of faith you speak, and every moment you consecrate to him reinforces the truth that your day is under his sovereign rule. Every morning, before the world begins to demand your attention and before the noise of life presses in, there is a sacred moment available to you. The moment when you consciously choose to release every burden and worry into the hands of God. Life has a way of piling weight upon our shoulders, of filling our minds with anxieties, and of challenging our hearts with circumstances that seem beyond our control. Yet in that sacred moment of prayer, you have the divine opportunity to unburden yourself completely, to surrender your fears, doubts, and worries to the one who is all-powerful, all-knowing, and unchanging. When you release your burdens, you are not showing weakness. You are demonstrating faith. You are acknowledging that there is a power far greater than any obstacle you may face, and that God alone is capable of carrying what you cannot. To release your burdens is to let go of the illusion that you must carry everything alone. It is to recognize that human strength has limits. Human understanding is incomplete, and human solutions are often temporary. God invites you to lay down what weighs heavily upon your spirit, to hand over the cares that keep you awake at night, and to trust that his wisdom, provision, and love will prevail where your own efforts may fall short. This act of release is both a spiritual discipline and an emotional liberation. It frees your mind to focus on God's promises, your heart to embrace peace, and your spirit to walk in alignment with His will. When you bring your burdens before God, you are practicing a profound form of obedience. The scriptures tell us to cast all our cares upon Him because He cares for us. This is not a suggestion. It is a spiritual principle that guarantees relief, restoration, and divine intervention. Every worry, every fear, every anxiety that you choose to release is an opportunity for God to demonstrate His faithfulness in your life. You are inviting His presence into your circumstances, allowing His Spirit to guide your thoughts, influence your decisions, and provide clarity where confusion may have reigned. To release burdens is to acknowledge that God's timing is perfect, His wisdom is unmatched, and His power is infinite. The act of surrendering burdens begins with honesty. You must recognize what weighs heavily on your heart, what occupies your mind, and what steals your peace. It may be financial concerns, relational challenges, health uncertainties, or spiritual doubts. Whatever it is, bring it fully before God. Speak it aloud if necessary. Confess it in prayer, and then deliberately hand it over. Say, Lord, I release this to you. I cannot carry it, but you can. I trust you to manage what I cannot control. In this moment, you are exercising faith, and faith always activates the supernatural. By releasing burdens, you are not avoiding responsibility. You are engaging in a higher form of stewardship, entrusting your life and your circumstances to the one who has the authority to orchestrate every detail according to His perfect will. Releasing burdens also involves replacing worry with trust. Worry is a weight that clouds your mind, drains your energy, and diminishes your capacity to experience joy. When you hand your anxieties to God, you create space for peace to inhabit your spirit. You make room for divine wisdom to inform your decisions, for clarity to illuminate your path, and for favor to flow in ways that human effort cannot achieve. Trust does not mean passivity. It means active reliance on God's guidance, actively choosing to believe that He is working all things together for your good. The moment you release worry, you align yourself with His timing, His provision, and His perfect plan, and you open the door to supernatural breakthroughs that would otherwise remain blocked by fear and doubt. This process of release also transforms your relationship with God. When you consistently bring your burdens to Him, you deepen your intimacy with the Creator. You learn to lean not on your own understanding, but on His Spirit. You discover the peace that surpasses all comprehension, a peace that guards your heart and mind even in the midst of trials. Each time you release a burden, you are reinforcing a spiritual truth that God is reliable, that His power is sufficient, and that His love never fails. This repeated act of surrender builds spiritual resilience, strengthens faith, and trains your spirit to respond to challenges with confidence rather than anxiety. Furthermore, releasing burdens has a tangible impact on your daily life. Your mind becomes clearer, your decisions become wiser, and your interactions with others become more grounded in grace and patience. Worry and fear often distort perception, magnify problems, and create unnecessary tension. When you hand these over to God, you experience freedom from mental and emotional bondage. You gain the ability to respond to situations rather than react out of fear or frustration. You are empowered to think creatively, act decisively, and walk in alignment with God's will, knowing that He is orchestrating circumstances for your benefit. It is also important to understand that releasing burdens is not a one-time act, but a daily discipline. Every day presents new challenges, new pressures, and new uncertainties. To maintain peace, joy, and spiritual alignment, you must consistently practice the art of release. Begin each morning by laying down what concerns you, asking God to carry the weight, and committing to trust Him throughout the day. Repeat this as needed throughout moments of stress, moments of doubt, and moments of decision. This is a lifestyle of faith, a conscious choice to relinquish control and embrace divine sovereignty over your life. Releasing burdens also empowers you to minister to others. When you experience freedom from worry, you become a source of encouragement, hope, and inspiration to those around you. You model faith in action, demonstrating that God is trustworthy and that his power is sufficient for every circumstance. Your peace becomes a testimony. Your calm becomes a witness, and your faith becomes contagious. Others see that you are unshakable, not because your life is free of challenges, but because you have learned to release every burden into the hands of a faithful God who never fails. Finally, when you release your burdens, you are participating in the supernatural rhythm of heaven. You are activating divine intervention, inviting miracles, and opening the door to blessings that could never manifest in a spirit weighed down by worry. The act of release aligns you with God's authority, his provision, and his perfect plan. It is an acknowledgement that the weight you carry is temporary, but the power of God is eternal, and in his hands, all things are possible. Every morning presents a sacred opportunity to align your heart and mind with God's divine purpose, to intentionally set your spirit in harmony with his perfect plan. Many people move through their days reacting to circumstances influenced by the pressures of life and governed by the expectations of the world around them. Yet as a child of God, you are called to something higher, something greater, a life lived in deliberate alignment with heaven. To align your heart and mind with God's purpose is to actively position yourself under his authority, to choose his wisdom over your own, and to embrace the reality that your life has a specific calling that is unique, intentional, and powerful. This alignment is not a suggestion or a passive state. It is a spiritual discipline, a conscious decision, and a daily declaration that shapes the trajectory of your destiny. Aligning your heart begins with a deep internal awareness of God's presence. It requires that you pause long enough to listen to his voice, to seek his guidance, and to understand his desires for your life. The heart is more than emotion. It is the center of your spiritual and moral compass. When your heart is attuned to God, your desires begin to reflect his will, your motivations are purified, and your decisions are influenced by his truth rather than the fleeting impulses of the world. A heart aligned with God is a heart that is free from distraction, free from bitterness, and free from the weight of fear. It is a heart that beats in rhythm with heaven, recognizing that God's purposes are higher than any plan you could conceive on your own. The mind, likewise, must be intentional aligned. The mind is the battlefield where thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions are formed. Misalignment occurs when the mind dwells on fear, doubt, confusion, or worldly influences that contradict God's promises. To align your mind with God's purpose is to actively choose to think his thoughts, embrace his perspective, and meditate on his word. It is to consciously reject negative thinking, unhealthy comparisons, and limiting beliefs that can cloud judgment and weaken faith. Romans 12:2 instructs us to be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that we may discern the good, pleasing, and perfect will of God. This transformation is a daily intentional act. Each thought you entertain, each word you speak, and each choice you make can either reinforce alignment or create misalignment with God's plan. Alignment requires clarity of purpose. Many people live their lives unaware of the specific plans God has for them, drifting through routines without recognizing the destiny he has ordained. To align with God's purpose, you must seek understanding through prayer, study of his word, and intentional reflection on the gifts, talents, and opportunities he has placed in your life. God has a blueprint for your existence, a design that is both unique and intentional. Your alignment ensures that you walk in this blueprint operating within the parameters of divine strategy rather than attempting to navigate life by human instinct alone. When your heart and mind are aligned with God, you experience clarity in decision-making, direction in your daily activities, and confidence in the steps you take. Alignment also involves surrender. It is an acknowledgement that your desires, ambitions, and preferences must be secondary to God's will. This does not mean that your dreams are irrelevant or that your passions are invalid, but rather that when your personal desires intersect with divine purpose, they become a channel for greater impact and fulfillment. Surrender is an act of trust, a demonstration of faith, and a conscious recognition that God's plans are perfect and his timing is flawless. When you surrender your will, you allow God to orchestrate circumstances in your favor, position you for opportunities that you could not engineer, and empower you to accomplish feats that exceed natural ability. The act of alignment influences every area of your life, your relationships, your career, your health, and your spiritual journey. In relationships, a heart aligned with God is patient, compassionate, forgiving, and loving. It seeks the good of others, not just personal gain, and operates under the guidance of divine wisdom rather than emotional reaction. In career and work, alignment ensures that your efforts contribute to purpose-driven outcomes, that your labor bears fruit beyond mere accomplishment, and that your actions reflect integrity, excellence, and stewardship. In health, alignment brings discipline, self-care, and choices that honor the body as a temple of the Holy Spirit. Spiritually, alignment fosters intimacy with God, a deeper understanding of his word, and a sensitivity to his voice that guides, corrects, and empowers. Aligning your heart and mind with God's purpose requires intentionality in thought and action. It is not a one-time decision, but a daily commitment to live consciously in the awareness of his will. Begin each day by dedicating your mind to God through prayer, meditation on scripture, and declarations of faith. Ask God to direct your thoughts, guard your emotions, and keep your heart attuned to his desires. Seek his perspective on challenges, opportunities, and relationships, and commit to responding according to his principles rather than the impulses of the moment. This deliberate practice strengthens your spiritual discernment and deepens your connection with the divine. Faith plays a critical role in alignment. Often, God's purpose requires steps that are counterintuitive, challenging, or even uncomfortable. To align with him is to trust that every step, every decision, and every season is orchestrated by his wisdom, even when it defies natural reasoning. Faith allows you to move forward with confidence, knowing that God's purposes are not hindered by circumstances, delays, or opposition. When your heart and mind are aligned with him, you are empowered to navigate uncertainty with courage, to persevere through challenges with resilience, and to remain steadfast in the face of distractions or discouragement. Alignment also cultivates spiritual sensitivity. A heart and mind tuned to God can recognize his guidance, respond to his promptings, and discern opportunities that others may overlook. It fosters an awareness of the unseen, an ability to detect spiritual influences, and a capacity to act in obedience to divine instruction. This sensitivity ensures that your actions are not merely reactive, but strategic, grounded in heaven's perspective and aligned with eternal significance. The more consistently you practice alignment, the more naturally it becomes a part of your lifestyle, influencing every thought, decision, and interaction in ways that honor God and fulfill his purpose for your life. The discipline of alignment produces fruit that is visible, tangible, and transformative. When your heart and mind are fully aligned with God, you experience peace in the midst of chaos, clarity in the midst of confusion, and direction in the midst of uncertainty. Your life becomes a testimony of divine guidance, a reflection of purpose-driven living, and a vessel through which God's glory is revealed. Others are drawn to the wisdom, peace, and confidence that radiate from someone walking in alignment, and your influence expands beyond what you could accomplish alone. Alignment is not merely an internal state. It is a spiritual posture that impacts every aspect of your existence and sets you on a path of fulfillment, success, and divine impact. Every day, we are faced with realities, challenges, and unseen forces that seek to disrupt, distract, and endanger the peace and purpose God has designed for our lives. The world is filled with uncertainty, and while we cannot control every circumstance, we can take a spiritual position of authority by inviting divine protection over our lives and the lives of our families. This is not merely a hopeful wish or a casual prayer. It is a declaration of faith, a spiritual act that aligns your heart with God's promises and calls upon his supernatural power to surround, shield, and preserve you. Protection from the Lord is comprehensive. It covers your mind, your body, your home, your relationships, and the destiny he has ordained for you. To invite it intentionally is to step into a posture of faith, acknowledging that God is your ultimate defender, your refuge, and your strong tower. To invite divine protection, you must first understand the nature of the spiritual realities that affect your life. The Bible tells us that the enemy prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking to devour, deceive, and destroy. Threats are not always visible, and attacks do not always come from obvious sources. They may appear as stress, relational conflicts, financial pressures, health challenges, or unexpected obstacles. Yet, the unseen realm holds the source of both danger and deliverance. God has provided you with authority over the forces that oppose his plan for your life. Through prayer, declaration, and the act of faith, you call upon heaven's protection to neutralize threats before they manifest, to guard your steps, and to secure your family and household under his watchful eye. Divine protection is not passive. It is active, dynamic, and comprehensive. It is not only a shield from harm, but also a force that fortifies your spirit, sharpens your discernment, and strengthens your resolve. When you invite protection over your life, you are acknowledging that your well-being is a priority to God, and you are claiming his promises to keep you safe, to deliver you from evil, and to prosper you according to his purpose. Protection extends to every area of life. It covers your physical body, safeguarding your health. It covers your mind, preserving your thoughts from confusion and fear. It covers your heart, maintaining peace and stability. And it covers your relationships, shielding your family from division, conflict, and harm. The act of inviting protection begins with intentional prayer. Begin each day by declaring that God's presence surrounds you like a fortress. Speak boldly over your life, your home, your children, and your loved ones, affirming that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Acknowledge that the Lord is your shield, your defender, and your refuge. These declarations are not empty words. They are spiritual commands that engage the authority of heaven, activating divine coverage that no human force can penetrate. Prayer also involves acknowledging God's sovereignty, confessing your dependence upon him, and surrendering control of every aspect of your life into his hands. This act of submission aligns you with his protective power and positions you to experience his supernatural intervention. Divine protection also requires vigilance. While God's protection is absolute, your participation matters. Be aware of situations that may compromise your safety or the peace of your household. Practice discernment in decisions, avoid reckless behavior, and remain spiritually alert. Protection is enhanced when you combine faith-filled prayer with wisdom and prudence. It is not an excuse to be careless, but a call to align your actions with God's principles. By exercising vigilance in combination with faith, you create an environment where heaven's coverage operates freely, where divine strategies unfold, and where the plans of the enemy are consistently thwarted. Family protection is a critical aspect of this practice. As you invite God's hand over your household, you are actively securing the well-being of your children, your spouse, and every loved one under your care. Speak life over their minds, bodies, and spirits. Pray for their safety in all circumstances, for divine guidance in their decisions, and for the manifestation of God's purpose in their lives. Declare that no harm, accident, or evil intention can penetrate the covering of heaven over your family. Recognize that protection is both immediate and ongoing, a continuous spiritual operation that guards against present dangers and future challenges alike. Inviting divine protection is also a declaration of faith in God's character. It acknowledges that He is faithful, mighty, and capable of keeping every promise. By speaking protection over your life and family, you are exercising trust in His power rather than relying on human ability. You are demonstrating confidence that God's angels are assigned to your behalf, that His Spirit monitors and intervenes in every situation, and that His promises are sufficient to sustain you through any adversity. This faith strengthens your spiritual posture, fortifies your heart, and instills a sense of security that transcends circumstance. Protection is closely tied to the principles of obedience and alignment with God's Word. When your life is aligned with His commands, when your actions honor His will, and when your heart pursues righteousness, you position yourself to benefit fully from His protective power. God's protection is not random. It flows in response to faith, obedience, and the exercise of spiritual authority. By choosing to live in alignment with His Word, you enhance your spiritual immunity, allowing divine protection to operate unhindered and manifest in tangible ways. This act of inviting protection has a ripple effect beyond the immediate sphere of your life. When your household is shielded, when your mind and heart are secured in God's presence, and when your body is kept from harm, you become a vessel of stability and blessing to others. Your home becomes a sanctuary, a place of peace, safety, and divine favor. Your faith in God's protection inspires those around you to trust Him as well, reinforcing the atmosphere of security, hope, and supernatural oversight in your community. Protection is not only personal, it extends to your influence, your testimony, and the legacy you are building through faith. Inviting protection is also an ongoing exercise of verbal declaration. Speak over your day, over your actions, over your travel, over your work, over every interaction, and over the unseen spiritual realm. Declare that the hand of the Lord is upon you, that angels encamp around your dwelling, and that every plan of the enemy is nullified and destroyed. These declarations, spoken with faith and confidence, operate as spiritual commands that summon divine intervention, activate heaven's resources, and enforce the authority of God over every domain of your life. The power of spoken words is immense, and when combined with persistent faith, they become instruments of supernatural safeguarding that guard against all forms of harm. Inviting divine protection requires consistency. Protection is not only for emergencies or moments of visible danger. It is a continuous engagement, a daily acknowledgement that God's covering is necessary at all times, even in routine activities and ordinary moments. By consistently invoking divine protection, you create a spiritual habit that strengthens your faith, reinforces your reliance on God, and ensures that the shielding presence of heaven is always active in your life and your family's life. Every day presents circumstances, challenges, and opportunities that demand a response from your spirit. And there is a spiritual principle that governs the life of those who understand the power of their words. You have the authority to speak life, favor, and breakthrough over every situation. Your words are not mere sounds or expressions. They carry creative power, influence outcomes, and release spiritual energy into the environment around you. The Bible reminds us that life and death are in the power of the tongue, and those who understand this principle can intentionally shape reality by declaring God's promises, speaking faith, and releasing divine alignment over every circumstance. When you choose to speak life, favor, and breakthrough, you are taking a proactive position of authority, refusing to be passive in the face of challenges, and partnering with heaven to manifest the will of God in the natural realm. Speaking life begins with recognizing that words are creative forces. When you speak positively with faith and authority, you are planting seeds that will grow into tangible outcomes. Words of encouragement, declaration, and faith create an environment where God's supernatural power can operate freely. Life-giving words affirm truth, establish direction, and release the supernatural into situations that may appear impossible. Conversely, negative words, complaints, or expressions of doubt can give the enemy an opportunity to manipulate circumstances and reinforce limitations. To speak life is to consciously choose words that empower, uplift, and activate God's promises. Understanding that your tongue is a conduit for divine energy. Favor is another essential dimension of your declarations. When you speak favor over your life, your family, your work, your finances, and your relationships, you are claiming the supernatural assistance that God provides to those who trust in Him. Favor is not earned by human effort alone. It is a supernatural positioning that grants access to opportunities, influence, protection, and provision that others cannot attain through natural means. By declaring favor over situations, you are activating God's alignment in your circumstances, ensuring that doors open where obstacles once stood, and that your steps are guided with precision. Favor attracts resources, allies, and divine solutions that surpass human reasoning. And when combined with faithful declarations, it becomes a catalyst for breakthrough. Breakthrough is the natural result of speaking life in favor over situations. Every circumstance, no matter how challenging, has the potential for divine intervention when met with faithful words. Speaking breakthrough is a declaration that limitations, delays, opposition, and impossibilities are subject to God's power. It is a verbal command to heaven that your circumstances will shift, your problems will be solved, and your destiny will move forward. Breakthrough does not always come in the timing or manner we expect, but persistent, faith-driven declarations create the spiritual momentum necessary to align your circumstances with God's plan. Breakthrough often occurs when words of faith are consistently spoken over time, reinforcing trust in God and activating His supernatural power in ways that exceed human understanding. The act of speaking life, favor, and breakthrough